I have been with my wife, 30-year-old, for 5 years, and we've got two kids, 3 years old and 1.5 years old. For the first year of our relationship, we had frequent intimacy, but after that, my drive dwindled and it went from a daily thing to a weekly occurrence, more or less. I've never had that big of a drive, and my partner has a very high drive. Plus, I'm very vanilla compared to her being more adventurous, which I absolutely don't mind. I just don't think about trying new things regularly. We have talked about this ever since our second year together until now, and for a period, think a couple of months, intimacy increased but went back down again. I do desire my wife and love her with everything I feel inside of me, so it's not a case of she's ugly now. I just don't have a big drive naturally. The low intimacy drive has been a challenge even before kids, so that period, and still a bit, obviously doesn't help. But I'm not going to excuse the kids demanding a lot of us for my low drive. My wife and I are great at communicating together with directness and honesty. We have always been on the same page with directly talking about a relationship shouldn't be open. If you desire other people, you end the relationship and go seek it. So now we are here, where she feels her intimacy needs aren't met through the relationship. I don't disagree. She also feels terrified of the thought of only having one partner for the rest of her life, and now wants to feel free and desired in order to reignite our relationship. She has also added it could also just be kissing, and not anything more. We don't want our relationship to end, because we still love each other in every other regard, aside from the intimacy not matching each other. We've agreed to never split up while the kids are small for their sake, as we can still be parents together, which is all we've been for the last month, really. I also know that I would most likely be lighting myself on fire in order to keep everyone warm with an open relationship, and I feel damned if I do and damned if I don't. I'm not really comfortable with the thought of an open relationship, and any way you put it, break for a period, only kissing, etc., is something I feel terrible about. My question: has anyone ever experienced something similar or maybe been against an open relationship, but been okay with it after they've tried it? Now for an update. Alright, this blew up more than I imagined. I've gotten a lot of great comments and direct messages, for which I thank you all. We are putting the kids to bed now, so when they sleep, we'll talk more about this. I am, though, 100% certain that it's either stay together and work together towards a greater life, or divorce. Obviously, there's a lot more to this between the lines than what I've written, but nothing tells me she has guys lined up and ready, or just wants an easy out of the relationship. It's a tricky and tough situation, but she is not a person with malicious intent with this proposal, even though it sucks. It's not a bomb that has just been dropped. We have briefly discussed this previously, 3 to 4 months ago. I do agree that it's ridiculous to think adding more intimacy on her part with other people will increase it in the home. And I absolutely think it's stupid of me to not have my hormones and blood checked. I haven't really thought of that, so thanks for all the nudges. I will add that my wife isn't a monster in wanting this. I am, of course, devastated it's this route she chose, but ultimately I haven't been meeting her needs, and it's not news she wants more. I take responsibility for the past, lack of, actions, but I won't torpedo my own happiness and sanity. Second update. First of all, thanks to everyone who wrote direct messages or comments. I've gotten a lot of great perspectives and insights regarding this. We had a long talk last night about everything. My boundaries, her needs regarding intimacy and intimacy, our relationship throughout the years, how the kids have an effect on everything, my hormones and such, and much more. We ended the night somewhat still unresolved in how to fix this, as my wife felt disconnected, due to lack of intimacy through so many years, despite having talked about it regularly. We were on the same page of loving each other and wanting to find a solution for continuing our marriage. Then comes today where she and our 3-year-old had planned to visit her grandfather, and I stayed home with our youngest. It was tough because we could both feel we're not getting closer to a solution, and it's pushing us further away. They came back when it was nap time and we said, all right, let's make something to eat and then try and talk. Honestly, without thought, I just said, How about we start with you? I got a surprised look in return with desire and lust in it, and throughout the lunch-making process, I just kept talking and kind of teasing sexually, which has not been my strength. It obviously ended in us having an intense round without further details, and when we were done, she said, "This is all I want. Where has this guy been?" And the heck if I know, but I don't think I did anything big or extra special. We talked about trying to set targets for our intimacy, such as 2 times a week and generally more verbal intimacy, if that makes sense. Which to me sounds very easy, especially taking everything into consideration. She also came to the conclusion later that she hasn't thought of opening it up again or needing it, and she really felt connected and in tune with what she missed about me for all these years. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. We also agreed to get my numbers checked at a doctor and try to prioritize more exercise for me. I only play casual football 2 times a week. To everyone saying, "Divorce, she's cheating. She has somebody lined up." I don't blame you for thinking it, but that is not the case. This is not a sudden ask from her. We've been talking a lot, and it's not the first time the subject has been brought up. It's just that she was so dissatisfied that she had desperate thoughts for a solution. Trust is a big thing in our relationship, and it still remains. To anyone saying my wife is a monster, snake, whatever, if anyone is a monster, it's me for not doing a thing for 4 years when she's been communicating about it. Most certainly not my wife. Now for a few comments before the update. An open relationship requires a solid foundation of communication, honesty, boundaries, satisfaction with your partner, and trust. It requires more of these things than a monogamous relationship. Opening your marriage will put even more strain on the fractures that currently exist and would serve only to hasten a divorce. Just as having a baby is no way to save a marriage, neither is opening it. How about something constructive like marriage counseling? Try that before applying dynamite to the marriage. Bro, your wife is disengaged, and opening up the relationship is the final nail in the coffin of this dying marriage. Get ahead of the inevitable and contact a lawyer before you both waste any more time. She's no longer in love with you and is ready to search for your replacement. Now, for the update. The last update I made was about trying to make things work with my wife, Sarah, who was pushing for an open relationship. 2 days after that, we went to our son's birthday party at an ice cream shop. It was fun for the kids and parents, but I noticed Sarah seemed pretty distant. She was all smiles and laughter with our friends, but barely said a word to me. I tried to talk to her a few times, but she brushed me off, saying she was busy. I get it. It was our son's party, but it felt like I wasn't even there. After the party, I was cleaning up when I found Sarah's phone on the kitchen counter. It was weird because she never leaves it anywhere. Anyway, I noticed a message notification from some contact named Jess. I should have just put the phone back, but I couldn't help seeing the message. It was Jess asking if Sarah was still interested in exploring that open relationship thing. When I read that, I felt this tightness in my chest. Like, I can't even explain it. I thought about confronting her right then, but I didn't want to ruin the party mood. So I just put the phone back. Over the next few days, Sarah kept bringing up her desire for freedom, but she'd do it in a casual way. Like, we'd be watching TV, and she'd say something like, "I just feel so stifled. Maybe I need to just go out and have some fun." I'd be like, "What do you mean by fun?" But she'd just change the subject. I suggested we go on a weekend trip, just the 2 of us, to reconnect. She used to love that idea, but this time she brushed it off and said she needed space. That was a big warning sign for me. I tried to ignore it, but I started getting suspicious. I noticed that she was texting Jess a lot, especially late at night. One evening, I was getting a drink from the fridge when I heard her on the phone in the living room. She was talking really quietly, but I could hear her say something about being tired of waiting. That hit me hard. I confronted her about it and asked if she was serious about the open relationship stuff. She didn't even try to deny it. She said she was exploring the idea because she felt stifled with us. I was just silent. I didn't even know what to say. It was like all the air in the room was gone. We went on with our lives after that. I thought we had agreed that we were going to work on things together, but apparently not. One night, we were at my parents' house for dinner, and out of nowhere, she brought it up again in front of my whole family. I was so caught off guard. My mom even joked about swinging, and I just wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. My dad looked shocked, my mom was joking, and my sister had this weird grin like she was thinking about what it would be like. I just said, "Can we talk about this later?" and walked out. Sarah followed me outside and said she didn't mean to embarrass me. I told her it was too late, though. The damage was done. The next day, I found a receipt for a hotel stay booked under Sarah's name. It was for the following weekend. I asked her why she was booking a hotel if we were working on intimacy, and she said it was just a girls' weekend with Jess. I felt so uneasy about the timing, but when I tried to express my concerns, she dismissed them and said I was being controlling. I was so frustrated. I just needed time to think, so I decided to stay at a friend's house for a few nights. While I was gone, Sarah posted a picture on social media from the hotel, captioned, "Girls Getaway," with a heart emoji. I saw that and just felt sick. I came home a couple of days later, and Sarah was packing a bag. She told me she was going to the hotel for the weekend anyway, because she needed to figure things out. I just watched her leave. It felt like a movie scene where the guy realizes he's about to lose the love of his life. The following week, I got a text from her saying we needed to talk about our relationship, and we met up at a diner. She explained that she had met someone during the getaway. We parted ways without a clear resolution, just an acknowledgement of how far apart we had grown. To answer a few questions, Sarah and I haven't discussed divorce or separation yet. We both recognize that we've drifted apart, but we haven't made any final decisions. The kids are unaware of any issues. We continue to present a united front for their sake. I haven't met anyone new, and I'm not actively seeking to. Sarah is still living at home for the time being, but things are tense between us. We are currently figuring out our next steps. Am I the idiot for confronting my husband after he pretended my sister was his wife? I'm really struggling right now and could use some advice from people who aren't in my immediate circle because I'm too embarrassed to talk about it with anyone else. I'm 30 years old and I've been married to my husband, who is 32 years old, for 5 years. We've been together for 7, and we met back in college. He was the first guy who made me feel comfortable in my own skin. I've always been more of a tomboy into sports, preferring jeans over dresses, and my body's more on the athletic side. Growing up, that wasn't always easy, but my husband loved me for who I am, and he never made me feel like I needed to change. I really thought I'd found the perfect partner. I also have a younger sister, Rosalie, who is 26 years old, and we've always been close. She's beautiful and effortlessly charming, the kind of person everyone just loves. Our mom has some serious narcissistic tendencies and definitely played favorites growing up, with Rosalie being the golden child. It wasn't her fault, and she never asked for the attention. In fact, she's always been super kind and supportive, even though she's the type who avoids confrontation and puts herself last to make others happy. So we've never really had any issues between us, but all those comparisons growing up left me with insecurities I've never fully shaken. About 2 months ago, Rosalie's long-term partner left her after finding out she was pregnant. She was devastated, and we agreed she should move in with us for a while to get back on her feet. She's been staying with us ever since, and at first, everything seemed fine. My husband didn't seem to act any differently, so I didn't suspect anything was wrong. 1 month ago, though, I asked Rosalie to drop off something for my husband at work because I was swamped. I didn't think much of it, just that it would save me some time. Well, she did, and it turns out that when she got there, everyone assumed she was his wife. They congratulated him on his beautiful wife and their soon-to-be son, and instead of correcting them, he just went along with it. He admitted that he liked how his coworkers reacted to having a beautiful wife and a baby on the way. It made him feel good. One of his coworkers asked him where his wife was at an event, and since Rosalie had already dropped by once before, they assumed she was his wife, and he didn't correct them. It made him feel validated, like he was living up to some ideal that I guess I don't fit into. I didn't find out about any of this until a few nights ago. We were out for dinner, celebrating our anniversary, when we ran into one of his coworkers at the restaurant. The guy asked my husband where his wife was, and when my husband said something vague about her being busy, I felt like the ground had just dropped out from under me. The date was basically ruined, and we went home as soon as we ate. I confronted him as soon as we got home, and that's when he finally told me everything. To say I'm devastated would be an understatement. My husband and I had always agreed on being child-free. We had that discussion early on in our relationship, and I thought we were on the same page. I don't have a strong desire to be a mom myself, partly because I have polycystic ovary syndrome, and I know it would be difficult for me to conceive. But now it feels like my husband's been using my sister to live out some fantasy life that I could never give him. Rosalie had no idea about any of this. When I told her, she was horrified. She kept apologizing even though none of this is her fault. She feels awful and has even offered to move out, but I can't ask her to do that. She's already going through so much, and I want to be there for her. But it's so awkward now. I can see how guilty and uncomfortable she feels being in the middle of this mess. This situation has also ripped open old wounds I thought I'd healed. I spent most of my 20s in therapy working on my self-esteem and trying to overcome these insecurities, especially the ones tied to growing up in Rosalie's shadow. I thought I'd finally come to a place where I could love myself for who I am. But now it feels like all that progress has been undone. Years of therapy feel wasted, and I'm back to square one, questioning my worth and my place in my husband's life. Since finding out, things have been incredibly strained at home. My husband and I aren't even sleeping in the same bed, and we've barely spoken to each other. The trust we once had feels shattered, and I have no idea how to even start repairing it. I feel so betrayed. If he can lie about something like this, what else is he hiding? Did he think I wasn't good enough to be introduced to his colleagues? And why has he never talked about his work friends before? I'm starting to wonder if he's been hiding me because he's embarrassed by who I am. This whole thing has dragged up every insecurity I've ever had. I've always felt like I didn't measure up to Rosalie, even though she's never done anything to make me feel that way. But now it feels like my husband has confirmed my worst fears. He chose to pretend Rosalie was his wife because she fits some ideal image, and I don't. I honestly don't know how to move forward from this. I love my husband, and I want to believe this was just a huge mistake, but it feels like so much more than that. I'm also worried about how this is affecting Rosalie. She's been nothing but supportive, but I can see how uncomfortable and guilty she feels being in the middle of this. I'm really struggling here. How do I even begin to address this with my husband without it turning into a huge fight again? I feel so low, but I can't stand the idea of our relationship ending. I love this man more than anything. He keeps saying sorry and trying to plan date nights. I'm honestly not in the mood for any of it. I've cried 2 times and have binge-eaten more than I have ever before. How do I live my life now knowing that I'm possibly not enough for my husband? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. OP, I had surgery that caused me to be overweight, brailless, and basically wearing old activewear for a while. I saw my husband in a cafe having a business meeting. I would have walked on by to give him privacy, but he stopped me and introduced me to his business associate. He told me later that I should never be too embarrassed to introduce myself as his wife. You deserve a husband like that. The only way that you get one is to be extremely picky with whom you choose to be in a relationship. Comment 2. This is not something you can get over. How disgusting of him. Not only that, you are making your pregnant sister feel terrible and uncomfortable being in your home, which is a place she should feel safe in. Your husband is a creep, and I would personally ask him to leave and continue to look after your sister. You will never get over this, and I would be embarrassed at the fact that he is still there while your poor sister is made to feel uncomfortable, which isn't good for her. Now, for the update. Just over a week has passed since the confrontation with my husband about Rosalie. The atmosphere at home is thick with avoidance. We're mostly just dodging each other, like we're in some sort of weird game of tag. I ended up sleeping on the couch because, honestly, The thought of being close to him right now just makes my skin crawl. He tries to talk to me, starting conversations that lead absolutely nowhere. They always end with me storming off to do something else, anything but be in the same room as him. In a moment of thinking it might help, I started keeping a journal to document everything going on, but honestly, it mostly consists of angry scribbles. Like, I'm talking high school level angst here. I hate him. He's the worst. Rosalie is a traitor. I want ice cream. It's not my best work, but it's where I am right now. So, my parents invite us to a family dinner for Rosalie's birthday. I really didn't want to go, but I felt like I had to. My husband insisted on coming along, claiming he wanted to make things right with me. Like, as if we can just play happy family in front of my parents and all will be good. At dinner, Rosalie seemed nervous. She asked if everything is okay between us. I wanted to say, no, everything is absolutely not okay. But my mom was listening and watching, so I just said we're fine. My dad brought out a cake, and the moment was tense as everyone sang happy birthday. It felt like someone was squeezing my heart. My husband kept trying to hold my hand under the table, and I pulled away each time. I could feel my jaw clenching, and I just wanted to escape. During dinner, my mom mentioned how happy she was for Rosalie's supposed new relationship. The comment made me want to scream. Rosalie looked confused, but didn't say anything. After dinner, I stepped outside for some air because I can't handle the fakeness anymore. My husband followed me, and I snapped at him for trying to act like nothing happened. He got all defensive, claiming he's trying to support me, but I don't want his support right now. While I was outside, I overheard my dad talking to my husband, asking if he's still playing house with Rosalie. I re-enter the house, and Rosalie is standing there looking anxious, like she can feel the tension. I snapped at her, telling her to just enjoy her birthday and stop worrying about us. My husband tries to intervene, but I shout that this is all his fault. The argument escalates, and my mom steps in, trying to defuse the situation. My husband storms out. I don't go after him this time. I decided to take a break from the family drama and go to a local cafe to clear my head. While at the cafe, I run into a former coworker who brings up my husband's flirtation with Rosalie. I realize this rumor has spread. It's not just workplace gossip anymore. I used this info to my advantage and decided to confront my husband with it. I returned home and found him sitting on the couch, looking defeated. I laid out the rumor and he went pale, claiming it's not true. I told him it doesn't matter, he's already made his choices. The next day, I decided to take action. I called Rosalie and invited her out for coffee. During our meeting, I told her about the rumors circulating and how they affect both of us. We came up with a plan to confront my husband together. That evening, we arrived home at the same time, catching my husband off guard. I told him we need to talk, and Rosalie stood by me, showing her support. He looked between us, panic in his eyes. I could see he knows he's cornered. I outlined everything I know, the rumors, the lies, and the consequences of his actions. Rosalie backed me up, stating that she never meant to hurt anyone and is just as confused. My husband began to sweat, and I could see the reality of the situation sinking in. I told him that trust is broken and I'm done playing games. He can choose his path now. I left the room, and Rosalie followed me, leaving my husband in stunned silence. Edit. I had a conversation with my parents about Rosalie's birthday. They were upset with me for making a scene. My dad was aware of the situation and had spoken to my husband about it earlier. My mother mentioned their concern over my husband's behavior towards Rosalie. It felt like they were defending him. Am I the idiot for demanding a public apology from my father-in-law before rejoining family gatherings? My in-laws, who are in their 60s, have a lake house. It has a ton of space, it's a frequent vacation spot, and every holiday is celebrated there. They've owned it since before I met my wife, who is 37 years old. 4 years ago, we were all staying there when my wife's cousin, also 37 years old, received a very foul email. I won't go into what it said, but suffice to say, it made her cry. My father-in-law works in information technology. He examined the headers and determined that the email originated from an Android phone and that it was off of the lake house Wi-Fi. My in-laws are Apple users and I am an Android user. My father-in-law accused me in front of everyone of sending the message. I denied it, allowed him to search my phone, and told him I would never do that. He found nothing but made a big show of telling me I had attacked his family and that I was banned from his home. He subsequently made a big post on Facebook about how he will always protect his family and how I had violated his home. My wife now goes there with our kids alone. I have not been there, and I have not spoken with my in-laws in 4 years. We celebrate holidays on a separate day together, and then on the actual holiday, I go with my family while she takes the kids to the lake house. Yes, it sucks. When asked why I wasn't there, my father-in-law told my kids that I do bad things. Over the 4th of July week, her cousin received another email from the same address. Once again, it was from an Android phone, and once again on the lake house Wi-Fi. This time I was 200 miles away. Well, when they checked, the other cousin, the first cousin's sister, and her kids had Android phones. The kids were bored and sending prank emails, not realizing they could be traced. My wife called me up, relayed the story, and asked me if I could come down for the rest of the week with the family. I told her that I would love to, and to let me know what day everyone would be there for my father-in-law to make a public apology to me. She got very quiet and said, "They just want to move forward." I replied, "I do too, and I will be happy to do so after your father publicly admits to the family that he was wrong, apologizes to me, apologizes to our children, and posts a public apology on Facebook." My wife started crying and said he is not going to do that. I told her that I'm not going to come back to the lake house, that her father made it clear he doesn't consider me family, and until he makes it right, I am done with her entire family. He essentially wants to pretend like it never happened and make it look like he forgave me and welcomed me back. I am not on board with this. When they returned, I informed her that in the words of her father, I had to protect my family and our children would not be going back to the lake house either. My wife is devastated, begging me to forgive and move on. She says that her parents already feel awful, that they never said I wasn't family, and now I want to publicly shame and embarrass them. She says that it's not fair that I'm asking her to choose between me and her parents. I countered that her parents set up that choice 4 years ago, and she had already chosen. The next lake house trip is Labor Day weekend. I've already told her that I will be bringing the kids to my brother's that weekend for a barbecue and pool party. My wife has agreed to come with us, but she keeps bringing up the lake house and begging me to reconsider. It keeps ending up with my blood pressure spiking and her crying, so I've asked her to stop bringing it up. My wife and I do love each other very much. This is maybe like 5% of our relationship, but it's something that has been weighing on me, and I know it's driving a wedge between us. I have always felt that my wife chooses her parents over me. She says she's sorry I feel that way, but it's not true. I told her that in 4 years she didn't stand up for me because she didn't believe I didn't do it. She vehemently denies this, saying she's been trying to get her parents to let me come back since then. I don't want to unnecessarily shame her father, but making right the damage he did is non-negotiable. At the same time, my wife is crying every day. She's not eating, she's losing weight, and I know this is taking a tremendous toll on her. I don't want to be the reason she has this much stress and anxiety. How do I address this with my wife without causing a confrontation? How can I ensure that my kids understand the situation without feeling caught in the middle? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think confrontation is inevitable. It's 100% unacceptable that your wife has been letting her dad criticize you to your own kids. That's flagrantly wrong. I suppose your wife has a history of being steamrolled by him and is afraid of what he'll do if she stands up to him. But that doesn't matter anymore. She's going to need to be a big girl and deal with her dad. I can't believe she even kept seeing them after the Facebook post designed to embarrass and humiliate you. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You should make your own post one way or the other. I can't understand why you're not seething with anger. This nonsense has to stop. Comment 2. Let me get this straight. Without evidence, your father-in-law accused and shamed you in front of the family, and then did so in a very public forum in front of friends, coworkers, clients, and whoever else. And now that it's proven that he's wrong, he will not make amends? He expects you, the wronged party, to say it's okay when he won't do the right thing? Oh, forget that. Stand your ground, original poster. I understand your wife is in a tough spot between you two, but she's wrong to not take your side here. Now, for the update. 2 days after everything that happened last time, my wife came home from the lake house. She looked horrible. Like she was smiling and all, but her eyes were red. I could tell she'd been crying. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that her dad just straight up refused to even acknowledge my request for an apology. Not even a, I'll think about it, or let's talk about it later. Just a hard no. She said he went on this whole rant about how he'd been wronged too, and she just couldn't handle it. She didn't want to talk about it much, so I just held her for a bit and let her chill. The kids were super excited to talk about their time at the lake house though. They just couldn't stop talking about the boat rides and the fishing and all that stuff. It felt good to see them so happy, but it made me feel kind of left out. Like I wasn't part of the family or something. We had dinner together, and my wife brought up plans for Labor Day. She was asking about a family trip, like all of us going somewhere together. I mean, we always did that. But things were different now, you know? I reminded her of the whole conflict with her dad and said I wouldn't go without that apology. The kids overheard us talking and asked why I wouldn't come. They looked kind of confused. My wife suggested we could celebrate Labor Day at her parents' house, but I wasn't down for that. I just couldn't. So I decided to take the kids to my brother's barbecue instead. I thought it'd be good for them to have some fun. On Labor Day, the kids were really pumped about the barbecue. They picked out all their favorite snacks, and we just had a good time driving there. My brother's house was close enough that it didn't take us long to get there. We got there, and everything was just awesome. My brother, though, he kind of knew about all the stuff that was going on with the in-laws and everything. He pulled me aside and asked how things were going with them. I told him about what was happening, how it had been going on for years, and how her dad still wouldn't apologize. He suggested having a family gathering to talk everything out, but I just didn't think that'd work. It never did. Still, the barbecue was great. The kids played games and made new friends, and honestly, I just forgot about everything for a bit. While we were eating, my wife texted me. She said her parents were disappointed that I didn't go to their house. I just told her to enjoy herself and stay with her family while I finished up at my brother's. I wasn't in the mood to argue. Later that evening, a neighbor at the barbecue told me they heard the in-laws were planning a big family dinner for the next weekend. I got curious when I heard it'd be at the lake house, so I decided to check the family group chat to see if they'd invited me. Nothing was sent to me, but I saw a bunch of messages about the plans. My wife got home really late from her parents' house, and I confronted her about the dinner. I asked her why I hadn't been invited, and she said her parents were trying to keep it small. They didn't want to cause more issues, apparently. I thought it was kind of rich for them to say that, considering how they always act. I called my brother and got him on board to help me organize a surprise visit to the lake house during the family dinner. He thought it'd be a good way to confront my in-laws. We planned to just show up and make it clear how I felt about being excluded. As the dinner day approached, I prepared the kids for the surprise. They got really excited about surprising their grandparents, and I just went along with it. They had no idea what was really going on, and I wanted to keep it that way. My brother and I got to the lake house just as the family dinner was starting. The in-laws looked shocked to see us, and the whole atmosphere just changed. It was so awkward. Her dad tried to dismiss me and act like I wasn't there, but I stood my ground. My brother jumped in and reminded them of the past accusations and how important it was for them to be accountable. Things got heated, and I demanded a public apology in front of everyone. Her dad didn't want to do it. He said we should just forget the past and move on. But then I pulled out the evidence I'd collected over the years about the email incidents. The whole family just went silent, and I could tell her dad knew he was trapped. Finally, In front of everyone, he gave me a half-hearted apology. The kids were confused about everything, but they were excited to see me standing up for myself. My wife stayed behind, caught in the middle of all of it. We didn't make any further plans for reconciliation. I figured I'd just focus on my family and the life I was building away from all that drama. Edit. My wife and I are separated now. The kids are with me most of the time, and they understand why we live apart. My wife visits occasionally, but things are still awkward. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.